Hey, welcome back to A Twin Flame Path. Today's video is very complex and very necessary because it's one that it's a subject that applies to pretty much every twin flame relationship. So with karmics, there's probably way more perspectives than I'm going to be touching on today, but the two main categories of the perspective of the karmic is the karmic person observing a twin flame relationship and acting as an interference or doing whatever that they do. But a lot of times it is an interfering kind of thing because a person may think that they have a position within that situation. But also a lot of times people are attracted to the energy that twin flames have, and there's just sometimes a pull in some energies to interfere, and that can be because of whatever it is that it is, but it's really not too important. So the other perspective is that of the twin flame observing their other half in a karmic situation, or seemingly with a karmic with a karmic person. And with that, sometimes the person that the other twin flame relationship person, I guess, is observing really isn't who they think it is, but sometimes whatever it is inside of a person can drive them to see what they want to see, and that could be the point of this person being around. It's not always a sexual thing. This entity that is teaching one or both of the people in the twin flame relationship a lesson. Most of the time, it isn't what you think it is. But all of those thoughts sometimes can lead to the answers that are necessary to heal that part of the relationship. Sometimes jealousy or fear mostly will cause people who are otherwise intuitive and tuned in to kind of not be able to see anything at all. That's one of those cases that I'm talking about where the person will see what they want to see. And in some cases it's because, it's easier to push away than to submit and trust. But as trust starts to develop, truth often follows. So to counter that, sometimes you have a person who wants in, who wants one of the people in the twin flame relationship, or they just want what the two have, and they think that it could be possible with them, but they haven't accepted that it's impossible because only one person can fit that position. Like there's no room for anybody else. It's like a perfect cutout, it's like, like those life-size boards of people, and it's like a silhouette, but it's a cutout. It's like any person other than the one that the cutout is of fitting into that position, in a minor way, like, in a basic kind of way. It's a different height, it's a different everything, but ultimately we're talking about souls here. There's only one soul that can fit into a place that a person in a situation has predetermined, has chosen, and that's a difficult position to be in, but sometimes, that interference can be frustrating, but the truth that comes from the patience of the two people in the twin flame relationship kind of exploring the byproducts of things like that happen are always good. And as far as choosing a karmic or choosing somebody who's not your twin flame, that's something else that's very possible. That's a very complex thing, and there are situations that are twin flame situations, but then have extra things that go along with them. Twin flame is not the only definition of what souls are about when they incarnate or when they're in, I was going to say the ethers, 5D, heaven. Well, that's a whole different thing. But when they're in the spiritual realm, there are more definitions of soul situations. And in some rare situations, there can be a pair of twin flames on Earth, but one of the twin flames is with another person. That person isn't a karmic. That person isn't an interference. That person is the twin flame in another regard. There can be extensions, and I'm kind of working through this, like how to speak about it, because I want to share and talk about these things. But as far as how to articulate these things is way more of a challenge than it is to just think about them or just to know. But basically, you can have two twin flames. You can have a situation where it's almost like a triangle, like one person has two people who are both their twin flame, and for some reason or another, two of them, in some cases, even continually choose not to be together. And the reasons for that can become very complex. But the perfect fit is still the other person who makes up the other corner of the triangle. So, though two of the people can choose to be together, And then the third person, who is of the twin flame mirror, has a completely different set of circumstances, but they're still mirroring the other two. And that's where other things, especially during reincarnation, and past lives and past situations before really, like, I wanted to say the transcription of time began, but if you think about how far and long that things can go back, then it's not very hard to understand the more ancient principles that still have involvement with modern, or at least relatively modern, because there's that whole future thing, but modern day, present day can be very affected by ancient situations. We tend to think that they're all just done with, especially in some cultures, or at least in some cultures, things are set up for people to not remember in really, really deep ways, like the whole situation is pretty much set up to work against somebody. And that's where the beauty of the community comes in. You need help in those situations, and that kind of help is greatly appreciated. And me personally, like, I can truly attest to being thankful to that kind of help, and I have and am and continue to be a recipient of massive amounts of help. Some cultures are better, or I wouldn't say better, and what I mean by cultures, some societies incorporate their history into the things that they do. They don't cut it out. Some cultures really didn't have ancient ties to begin with. One good example of this is here in the United States. I was born American, and America's not an ancient civilization, but the land that America was founded on is. The Native Americans were here and have been here forever, and I'm Native on both sides of my family, meaning on the father's side and the mother's side, but as an American, there's not a lot of traditions. Our traditions started with 4th of July. Those traditions pretty much came from Europe, as far as like our government and how we fight wars and all that kind of stuff. Like, that's a blend of a lot of things. But when we're talking about like spiritual preservation, the spiritual thing that we had here were pretty much, Wiccans. We had people who were getting burned at the stake. The natives, they were attempted to be crushed out. And that holds true in Canada too, and I can speak on that because of association and having been born into that situation too. My mom is from Canada, so, but that's about as far as things go here. Like, to get really deep into some ancient stuff and spirituality that's different than just, some Protestant people that came over on a ship. Like, we don't really connect to that too much. You see people like here in the States, appreciating Native culture and appreciating Native people, but honestly, there aren't a whole lot of Native people around in the States. We have some reservations and they're sprinkled, and maybe it's because of my location too, but up in Canada, there's a problem, with the Native community. Like, they're having more issues up there. So, but in both places, nobody is really like, practicing things that Natives did or do outside of the community who aren't Native, and that also is, it's also like another part of that is that we have so many cultures that came here. To be American is like to have everybody around, but as far as you practicing things that go back generations, a lot of that is lost. So you compare that to a place that, nurtures things that are a few thousand years old. Totally different circumstances. I was blessed to, still be able to connect with the ancient part of things, and not without a ton of, a ton of help. And honestly, like, I'm getting a little off topic here, but like, some of it's hard to, gather, some of it's hard to sink in, because these concepts are wild. In American culture, some of these concepts are absolutely wild. And in other places, it's just what people do. And it's like, everyone knows about this. And, that's just how it is. And it's like, here it's like, dude, like, let the media tell it. You're straight crazy, cray, all the way. But then when you start asking your own questions and start receiving your truths, and can't stress it enough, getting help from your community, and it's like, this is the truth, and what they're doing over here is actually crazy. But what it is that they're not crazy at all, that it's a very specific technique. And that technique goes back to that whole burning people in the trees, like, it gets kind of deep. There's just more depth to swim through. Imagine like you're underwater, but like you're way underwater, like, and you have to swim like meters, and then you like get to the surface, and then you're like, you're above water, and you're just like looking around like, okay. But you have to swim through so much stuff just to get to a point where you're like, okay, I see what's going on, So none of the concepts are that, basically nothing is impossible, and that sometimes takes time. And another perspective that I'll touch on now that I'm thinking about it, or now that it's here, is that sometimes it takes seeing, some people have the perspective of seeing their twin flame in a relationship, and they really are the right person for them. They really are their partner. But sometimes that person has to go through basically being wrong in order to get to a point where they're fighting for what's right, or that they appreciate what's right, you know. A lot of the confusion in society in the United States has to do with this artificial dream. And it's not even like a good dream, you know, like, sorry, but like the situation that's going on here, it's, you know, I gotta be like blunt, you know, like a lot of the music is messing with people's mind, and a lot of music is like the devil's playground for sure. And a lot of music and images are just fake, you know. It's like ass shaking, rented mansions, rented chains of artists that don't have the dough that they're throwing on their Bentley, and this girl's ass is gonna have to get cut off of her in a few years because her injections are gonna like blow up, and those tits don't do what they need to do. You know, it's like, I'm not laughing about it. I'm laughing at the illusion. You know, it's like, if you need implants or you want implants or whatever, that's all cool. But what I'm talking about is this like tail chasing society that's going on right now. You know, dudes and girls rapping about stuff that is either degrading, that they've never done, that they never will do, that they're copying from somebody else. And if they did live that life, like perpetuating it like it's something that everyone needs to be doing, and then people like kind of judging on stuff, you know, like it doesn't matter if it's real or not, but whose ass is the biggest. And it doesn't matter if I really love him, who's gonna get me the most bags. And oh, this person on TV is doing this, but that chain isn't real. Or that chain was bought by management in order to like sell the dream, and this person is a slave to their manager and their label. You know, or whatever it is. And that artificial dream is kind of hard to avoid now. And for somebody to avoid it, you kind of have to fight for pole position. You have to fight for, you know, not being bombarded by people who are glamorized in the media but live lifestyles that are like scary, you know, like stuff that you just need to avoid, you know, even avoid watching them. But a lot of cats are chasing that dream. And so in some karmic and twin flame situations, you have somebody, you know, who may be caught up in that kind of situation. And for them to like let it go, they kind of have to like learn the truth, you know. And then it becomes very complex. Like, it becomes like case sensitive at that point. So, but it's not impossible for sure. Definitely nothing is impossible. It would hurt for sure, but people do wake up. People do get fed up with lies and abuse, and, you know, sometimes like having a realization that you are in the wrong place. You know, sometimes the pursuit of truth will trigger like more truths being realized, and then ultimately knowing what the solution is. So we'll get more into this maybe in another video. But I hope that this was a beneficial and helpful video, and I enjoyed being able to talk about these things with you, and I'm looking forward to talking more, and talk to you next time. Bye.